Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior sustainability and advertising professional from Los Angeles, USA, Mr. Mark Feller. Mark, welcome to the show.
Welcome, everybody.
Mark is a sustainability innovator and an advisor. So, Mark, let's talk sustainability today. Tell me about the work you do as a sustainability activist.
Yes. So how I started this, I've always been an entrepreneur with a green thumb. I've always was really interested in the linear flow of materials and circularity. And so from my first business on, I was involved in recycled clothing, in the antique business. Then I was in organic farming, and then I went to the advertising. And then I also built one of the first greenhouses here. So I always was experimenting with solar durability. And I did all this before it became cool. And now it's, everything's about timing.
Correct.
Up to 5 years ago, people used to call me a tree hugger. And I had to talk a lot more. And this finally we've gotten to the time in history we have to talk less because people have come to the same level. Correct. And now with the zeitgeist, sustainability is the in thing. And that's relatively new, and I'm really cherish this moment.
Fabulous. And when you talk sustainability innovation, tell me a little bit about what kind of work are you doing as an innovator?
Yes, so I work with a lot of scientists, and we have all these lofty terms, and sometimes when you ask people what is sustainability, they can't even answer that yet. Correct. So I just try. My whole thing is to break it down to relatable terms. So it's relatability, scalability, connection, and culture. And we get bombarded with all the science now. And, I talk to a lot of professors and they write lofty papers, but people don't have the attention span for that. So I break it down into relatable sentences that people can comprehend, relatable experiences, things that they can use in their own life.
Very interesting. But the other part that I wanted, and I've been speaking to many people who are involved in sustainability, how seriously is sustainability being taken in boardrooms, Mark?
Well, I think now that it makes money and that we have actually the awareness has come up and you actually have a customer base that cares, it's becoming very more serious. It's all about making money. People, very simple. It's getting a good deal, making money, and looking good on social media. When I say looking good on social media, it's like, what is your morals, your values? What do you like and your dislikes? I break it down as an advertiser to get you up from the couch at 2 a.m. and go buy Doritos or something like this, to that nature. So now sustainability is really getting important because you have the customer base. It's all about the consumer, supply and demand. And now people are starting to ask questions, hence the greenwashing.
Very interesting. And I'll come to greenwashing. But, when you look at sustainability, what are some of the challenges being faced in the developing world? And just before we started recording, you said that you had read up a little bit more about India. So I'd love to get some of your perspectives on what are sustainability challenges in the developing world.
Well, in the developing world, it's basically what people do here. Now we have something really big happened in America. It's the Inflation Reduction Act. Policies are starting to tilt the level the playing fields for business. Now people suddenly can save money by installing solar. There's all these incentives. There's a reward for doing this. Again, saving money, making money, and looking cool with your neighbor. There's a little bit of social pressure now. So when I looked at it, and also what's really important with sustainability, I'm going to use something very simple. It's just changing your habits.
Correct.
And I'm going to use something really mundane. You use deodorant. Let's say you use deodorant. It's a plastic thing made by probably a large corporation, Procter & Gamble, has aluminum in it, which is not good for you. And you use your deodorant. And you realize there's plastic pollution, there's chemicals in it. So now one day somebody will introduce you to a deodorant stick that's in a cardboard little container that has natural ingredients that when you're done with it, you can throw it away to give a little bit back to charitable organizations. And once you made that break, that habit, that's it. You will never use the Procter & Gamble plastic deodorant anymore. Plus, Procter & Gamble is going to start making that deodorant because it makes money.
Absolutely.
So that's the habits, is really breaking the habits. You know, we're so used to doing a certain thing, and then to break that. So this is here, the Western world. I thought for an emerging economy like India, I was thinking maybe there is a time now as the growth comes in to grow right, because we need a systemic overhaul. I mean, the business will be, I think the business lays within re-engineering everything from the linear flow of material to a little bit more circularity and preservation. So I thought we've polluted for 200 years now.
Absolutely.
India is coming up. And so they have the right to live the way we live.
Correct.
But that takes a lot of resources. So you're at a cusp now where maybe you can just tilt it a little bit. I think that would be a great opportunity. I think India has, what, 1.4 billion people?
Yep.
Yeah. So
well said. Well said. And I must say, you know, given all the things that are happening in the world and our own leaders, sustainability is something that people are getting much more aware of in India.
Wonderful.
But moving on, Mark, I wanted to ask you, how does culture, you know, and different countries, different societies have their own culture. How does culture impact sustainability?
I think that's a great question. And it's a question that you can almost reframe. First of all, absolutely, culture affects sustainability. The next thing is, shouldn't sustainability become the culture?
Correct.
Once you have a culture there that accepts sustainability, and I'm going to take an American point of view, gender equality, civil rights, all these things that were impossible have become possible now. So I'm thinking, once this is the culture, then we don't have to talk so much anymore. It's going to be normal. Do you waste stuff? Not that much. Do you recycle? Yes, I do. Are you more mindful about your consumption? Yes, I am. Do you lead by example and show other people like hacking tricks and all this? Yes, I do. And then I think from other cultures, it's unfortunately with emerging cultures, everybody wants that shiny red tractor, but there's ways how to show people how to live better with multi-cropping and how to have a better life. And I also think education is a big one. We need to have a baseline, a sustainable educational baseline. If you don't know, how can you apply that? Everybody, if you learn how to drive a car, they give you a pamphlet, you learn the basics. This is stop, this is where, you know, this is go, this is the speed limit, and then they let you go in traffic. But I think we're lacking that basic educational baseline. And once we have that, I think it's going to be a lot easier. Yes, but culture has something to do. Globalization is in full swing. However, there's different cultural perceptions of this whole thing. But I think the teachings are all the same. It's one planet. One, you know, it's one planet. So culture is important, but I think there's probably different approaches of teaching the same subject matter.
Well said. And do you think, you know, a strong country's sustainability strategy will contradict an ambitious GDP growth plan?
Yes. And I think that's where a systemic overhaul comes in. That growth plan is, I think, something that has shown not to be sustainable. This is where lies the problem. I think that the business will come from re-engineering, innovating, improving, and kind of reinventing ourselves. I think we went from a conceptual phase to an experimental phase. So we're in the middle of experiments. Certain things work and certain things don't work. The one thing that I can tell you is that if we continue on this path, on the previous path, we're not going to do well. I mean, we wrecked the planet in probably 200 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yet, when I look at the young generation, the millennials, the Gen Zs, and I always believe that they have actually brought a breath of fresh air into virtually everything. These young leaders are getting into positions of influence in society, in the corporate world. I'd love to get your perspective on how are these young individuals changing the way we think about sustainability?
Absolutely. This is a very important fact. The other side of this is that we need to cut 50% of our carbon emissions in 8 years. So time's of the essence. I think would we have started, woulda, coulda, shoulda started a little earlier, I would feel much more comfortable with this. Absolutely, young people are the future. Young people have to work in the old system, though, still. So we have a lot of innovators, but our system, the rigidity of our system, makes it very difficult for people to really change the way they really want to change. There is change everywhere going on right now, but I just think that in the system we're working in makes it somewhat very difficult.
Very interesting.
But, young people are definitely the future. Young people are brought up already with doing, buying less, consuming less, and they've learned through the pandemic that the impossible has become very possible. Who would have thought that you can't travel? Who would have thought that you have to stay at home? Who would have thought you had to work from home? So they know the concept of keep an open mind. You can't tell me that's not possible. It's absolutely possible.
Well
so
said.
I think that's a very big change of philosophy now that people have. They can make the impossible possible. They have a can-do attitude, whereas older generations are much more rigid because we've worked a long time in the same system.
Wonderful. One more question, and then we move to advertising. How can capitalism work for the planet?
I think in lieu that we don't have a better system. We've tried communism, didn't work. Capitalism is the current system. So I think it's going to come down to the consumer a little bit. It's all fueled by the consumer. We finance it all. If you have a more educated consumer, I think industry will have to react. It's supply and demand. So I really think that's what it comes down to. And there has to be some kind of social change. And unfortunately, more bad things need to happen for us to accelerate this. Business is moving, but everything's a government is moving, but it needs to be accelerated. We're lagging behind by 30 years, which we need to catch up.
Okay. Now let me move to your other avatar as an advertising professional. Tell me a little bit about your own background in the world of advertising, and then I'll ask you a few questions.
Yeah, so I was specialized in celebrity endorsements. So celebrities is a great way for brands to reach a customer base. And I've done that for quite some time. I've started out with doing print and music videos, and then I went to corporate short films, and then I specialized in celebrity engagement. And then from there, I was like, you know what, it really changed as far as I was right at that transition point when really the influencers came in and social media and all that. And I said, this has become very competitive now. And then I said, but sustainability opened up. And so I went in that direction. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to use my advertising skills for a force for good. And so that's how I switched over.
Wonderful.
So basically now I advertise, but I advertise for sustainable development. And sustainable products.
And in fact, you have given me an opening for my next question, which I was going to ask you, which is that how are you using your advertising knowledge to be able to communicate the message of sustainability better? And please give me an example. Yes,
I'm using triggers. Like in advertising. Everybody loves puppies. That's basically what it comes down to. You really have to find relatable experiences. And that's the magic of advertising. It's really touching a certain feeling, desire, and creating that je ne sais quoi, as they say in French. And that's what an advertising does. We create an illusion. But now I'm going to create an illusion for the force of good. And that's what advertising is. It's basically just, we're selling product. We're pushing ideas, products, and now we're trying to push the right ideas and the right products. And now I'm also trying to push messages. Whereas before, it was basically very much consumption based. But it's the same, in the end, it's really the same application. The same application. Nothing changes.
And can you give me an example? I mean, without violating any of your customers' copyrights, etc.
Yes, so I would say your one of the basic things is your environmental marketability. You know, how do you your environmental marketability? How do you take advantage of this awareness that's going on? How do you take advantage of people actually caring for the planet? And probably now we would go into greenwashing. So this is what people are doing right now, but this is really there's like, how do you do that? And also for messages, when I talk to guys like Paul Hawken who wrote a Project Drawdown, and I'm like, we have to hit the triggers. It needs to be relatable. There needs to be a connection. If there's no connection, no relatability, you're not going to push the product.
And you just spoke about greenwashing, which is my next question. What is greenwashing, and how are companies going to handle such challenges?
So greenwashing, the term is actually coined as dissemination of disinformation by an organization as to present an environmental responsible image. Now, I'm people that throw that around, and I thought greenwashing was a good start. Because right there, now you understand there's a customer base. You're trying to reach out to that customer base. You're lying. You're inflating things, but you're presenting that kind of picture now. At some point, you will have to back it up. However, unfortunately, this is not really how it works. Yeah, I saw, for instance, a commercial from Chevron, and they call themselves the human company. And it's really right now, it's a little far-fetched, but that's what every major corporation has to do. However, it's moving in the right direction. It starts with that, then it starts with actually changing some departments around, then it goes on, and then you have to have some kind of product to back that up, and then you realize, this product is selling, so you're going to make more of that product. And so I look at it as a good start, rather than, but sometimes I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, people are really harsh with greenwashing. However, it is a beginning. And it's just, when you look at every commercial now, or a lot of commercial, I don't know about India, but Super Bowl commercials, it's pretty much EVs, electric vehicles now. It's a big change. It shows you that major corporations are in the snap moment. We have to do something. And so I like that we have to do something part.
And do you think that a lot of this is happening because of consumer, societal, and government pressure, or are a lot of organizations actually being motivated from within?
I would like to hope that some of them are motivated from within, but I really think it's supply and demand. It's just really the polluters. When you read the studies, and I'm always for progress, but when you read the studies, the oil companies knew around mid-70s that burning fossil fuels was going to create some kind of climate change, and they still kept going for another 40, 50 years. But I think that change comes from within. Partially of what you said is that the workforce is changing. But I think in the end, when you look at the grand scheme of things of capitalism work, it's about the money. It's about pushing product.
I was speaking to a major car manufacturer, leader of a major car manufacturer, and he actually said to me, he says that we have billions of dollars invested in traditional equipment. What are we supposed to do? Throw it all away? So
it's like opening one door while trying to keep the other door open as long as possible. Correct. Because yes, it's again the thing we talked about, the systemic. It's all set up this way. Now they got to change it around. Some people change it around. Elon Musk with Tesla, they tried to, and now everybody's gearing up and trying to get into it. So I think it's probably both. I would hope, like you said, that there's something from within as management changes, but most of it is just good old business.
Wonderful. I've got time for two more questions, Mark. And my next question is on technology. I'd love to get your perspective on how is technology being used to be able to monitor, manage progress on sustainability and communication.
It's huge. It's all about technology these days. It really comes down to technology. When you look at biotech, when you see how you can track your customers, what your customers buy, we didn't have that before. It's really, you can really dial it down to the preferences now. It's a game changer. It really is a game changer. And big companies like Amazon and they really know where it's going. It's very trackable these days. So I think tech is huge. I'm all about innovation. I think we have to, my mantra is we have to innovate ourselves out of this pickle. So tech is incredibly important. And every time there's a tech event, I'd like to go. I don't consider myself a techie, but I'm very well aware that that is the future.
Well said. And my last question, Mark, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your own amazing journey as a celebrity endorsement guru, as someone who's been in advertising communication, who's pivoted to the world of sustainability, as in your own words, you were considered to be a tree hugger. What would you say are 3 lessons you would like our viewers and listeners to take away from your own knowledge, your journey, and our conversation?
Okay, I'd like to I have to think that 3 lessons, like first lesson is keep an open mind. I think that is very important. Keep an open mind and be open to new things. I think that is super important. The second thing I also think is important is, as an individual, you can make a difference. It's really important because you can live by example and experiment a little bit, try new things. Don't listen, listen, have an open mind, try new things. And the third thing is there is strength in numbers. And I'd like to say one more thing is we're in experimental phase. So experiment, we have to try new things. So, because right now when people say, but it doesn't work, there's not enough rare earth to make the batteries, there's not enough this, I'm like, yes, yeah, but we gotta move forward. So we have to try new things. Down the line, it'll all fall into place. But if we don't try new things, we'll never know and we'll never innovate. So be open to new things.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Change your habits. It's easy. It's difficult, but once you start, it's easier than you think. Get into the habit of changing your habits. Well
said, well said. And on that note, Mark, and your amazing lessons, keep an open mind, be open to new things and to do new things. Next one you said was you can make a difference and therefore keep trying new things. And third one you said was there is strength in numbers, keep trying new things and keep experimenting. On that note, thank you for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about your own journey in sustainability, for sharing some amazing thoughts on what you are doing and how the world can move towards a much, much more sustainable world. Thank you also for talking to me about your journey from the world of communication to the world of sustainability. Thank you again and good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.